Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good, Frank. Good to see you.
Yeah, same here, man.
Another week at Perspective Shift.
Yes.
How we doing?
I'm doing fabulous.
Yeah?
You know, I say it every week. I just make shit up as I go.
Hey, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. What are we diving into this week, my friend?
Well, Gregg Braden.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Gregg Braden.
Well,
yeah.
I got to say something quickly about Gregg Braden. So back when I was first learning about these concepts, this was one of the first guys that you, Frank, introduced me to.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah, and
All right.
I remember watching his Missing Links. This was probably like 2 years ago on Guy
Right.
or something, 3 years ago, whatever. And I was just enthralled by this dude because the way that he meshes the science and the history and just like cool like music concepts and things
he's a
that have to
musician.
do.
That's
Yeah,
right. He's a
yeah,
guitar player,
musician.
Yeah.
It was like seeing all these worlds come together for me personally, and I was like, this is truth. And it was very exciting watching him too, because I had never like heard these concepts about a holographic universe and just how we process information and how we navigate this reality. And so to hear it from his perspective and the way that he shares this information, it's super powerful. It was very easy to digest. It wasn't over my head. It wasn't too like physicsy, quantum, like math that was hard to understand. And I want you to share your story about Gregg Braden.
How I met him?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because
Yeah.
that's a good way to kick this one off.
Well, how I was introduced to him. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, I forgot even what year it was. It's been a while. But, yeah, so a buddy of mine.
It was a while ago. Wasn't
yeah,
it like over 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, it was right after Secret came out.
Yeah.
And this guy named James Ray was doing these conferences.
Yep.
So, and I used to go to these conferences like early on in my life, like in my early 20s and stuff like that. How to better yourself,
Yeah.
Listen to like Tony Robbins and stuff like that. So I would go to these things, and they were interesting. They were like pep rallies, but no one really told you what to do. If you couldn't do it, like if you weren't becoming successful the way they said, there's something wrong with you. That's kind of how I picked it up. Not that that's true or not. It's how I looked at it when I was younger. So anyway,
Yeah.
fast forward, Secret comes out, and there's a bunch of talking heads on it. One of them is this guy named James Ray. So my buddy's like, hey, James Ray's coming to town. We live in Phoenix, and he's going to be at this hotel. He's doing a 2-hour talk, and what it pretty much was to get us to go to one of his retreats.
Yep.
So I go down with him. Like, I have nothing better to do. I'm like, yeah, all right. So as we're there, he's talking. I like what he's saying, and I ended up signing up for one of the retreats. Now, this was in September.
This is a James Ray retreat?
Yeah, James, and the retreat I signed up for was in San Diego, and it would have been featured, or it would have been held in February. So I sign up, I get it, and because I was one of the first people to sign up, and funny is my buddy didn't. Like, he's the one who dragged me to this thing. He's like, yeah, I'm not doing it. I'm like, what the hell, whatever.
Yeah, dive in.
So I go, I sign up, and because I signed up, I was one of the first 10 people to sign up. They gave me a free one, and that free one was going to be in October, so just a month after this 2-hour conference. And I'm like, well, I got a business to run. I can't really, for me at the time, it was I couldn't just take off of work at that moment.
Yeah.
So I was trying to give my buddy, I'm like, why don't you just go take it? He's like, no. So I couldn't give this away. I called a couple of friends. They couldn't do it. So I'm like, you know what, the hell with it. I did it. So the week before I did this is when James Ray had that TP incident up in Sedona.
Yep,
where,
go into this.
Several people died.
This is interesting, yeah.
So I'm like, wow.
This was in the news. You guys can Google this.
Yeah, it was. I know.
Where was it? Sedona?
It was in Sedona, and what it is, he had people doing a sweat lodge in it, and turns out that he forced people into staying in, which they shouldn't have. But
Did he actually force people?
well, he was telling them push through it. He was like motivating them to stay in. But again, not to get into this too deeply, but the way I looked at it is like that wasn't his first rodeo. But yet these people, it was their first rodeo. They should have got off the horse in 5 minutes, so to speak.
Yeah.
So anyway, I call up the place. I'm like, hey, is this conference still going on? The woman's like, yeah, why? I'm like, well,
Well,
people just died.
some news article.
Yeah, it's like this guy, it's like, no, everything's fine. He's not accused of anything. I'm like, all right. So I go, and when I go there, there's probably like 600 people there.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, pretty decent audience. And he comes out and he addresses what happened briefly. And we do this meditation prayer for the people. Then he goes on and he's doing all this stuff. Like he's like a salesman, this guy, you know, and, you know, he's motivating. But then he's like, okay, if you go in the back, I got this program you can sign up for, or you can be part of this organization. And everything from there, it's just kind of like, okay, for $10,000. I'm like,
that's a shitload of money.
yeah, it was part of this world organization, which probably no longer exists because he went to jail. But
right.
Anyway, so I think it was a 3-day, retreat, if you will. And everyone that came out, there was people from lawyers to show you how to run businesses and business people to show you operations and everything. And every time they had 2-hour segments open for questions and answers. And then they draw you to the back of the room to purchase their program. And I'm like, Mike, why can't you teach me what I need to know now? What the hell was it 2 hours? Like, you know, everything was get this program and I'll give you the truth.
Yeah.
So on the second day, midday, Gregg Braden comes out, and he wasn't bitter towards anything, but you could tell he held this standard. And he goes, listen, we all have the energy field within us. I'm not here to sell you anything. And I'm like, now I'm perking up. He goes, we have everything we need in us. And then he starts talking about this book called Power versus Force. And
you talking about Hawkins?
Yeah.
Dude, hell yeah.
David Hawkins.
We got to do an episode on him.
Yeah, we will. And it was about 3 months prior I actually had read that book.
Hell yeah.
And all of a sudden, now I'm perked up. And he's talking about the field of energy and how when we go within and we can create our own energy field. And, you know, I don't remember exactly what he said at the moment, but I've been following him ever since. But that's how I came to know him. And oddly enough, I never made it to the February one. I got my money back because the guy went to jail. But I remember for the first time, like I knew there was something out there that can allow myself to live a more fulfilling life with a stream of ease, if that meant. I wasn't trying to be rich to overcome something. I knew there was more out there, and I would end up, the only conference they had was a conference like this. But he was the only one that came out there, and he just stood out to me. I hope he stood out to other people as well. I'm sure he did.
He definitely has.
When he said, he's like, I got nothing to sell you. Everything you need is within you.
God, that's so powerful.
And that's when I realized, okay, there is something. And that's when I started diving into this work of the quantum field. And even though I read the book Power versus Force, I was intellectually understanding, but I wasn't really practicing until that moment. And that's how I was introduced to Gregg Braden.
See, that's cool as hell. And I love like the backstory about that just because the way you met him and this body, this instrument, this tool let you knew what was truth and what was not.
I knew it, yeah, because what these other people were saying, it wasn't that it wasn't truth, but they were holding back. And did they really know? I don't know.
That's the thing.
But
when you know this,
yeah,
it comes off like a Gregg Braden.
And he seldom...
Not, hey, get my book, get this.
I was listening,
there's a reason you felt that.
Yeah, I was listening to one of his, I think it was on Gaia, and he was talking about like how he has a channel actually, and I don't know how often it comes out, maybe once a week. And I was watching it, and he's talking about stuff, and a lot of people try to like, hey, you should charge for this. He goes, no. He's like, this is not where I make my money. This is information. And even if he did charge, there wouldn't be anything held against him. But that's how genuine this guy is. He's a genuine guy.
He is.
And he has information. Everything he knows, he will let you know. There are moments in time where he'll say, listen, I can't let you know this because of the format we're on or the platform we're on.
Yep.
Might take me off. So he actually explains that. He doesn't just not tell you. He's like, listen, I can't talk about certain things because of the platform we're on. And he's not by any means a conspiracy theorist.
No, it's cool what you're talking about.
Yeah,
no, we're talking like climate change stuff and things like that.
Well,
the media narrative doesn't fit.
Yeah, and he will talk about that, but there's other things that he's opened up over the years that he's actually talking about now, but even in the future, it's like, yeah, there's certain things. But as it's becoming more mainstream, he's able to open up because the platforms won't shut it down. We're in a beautiful time right now where most platforms don't know enough to shut it down anyway. But that's what they're designed for. But yeah, so that's my story about how I came to introduce to Gregg Braden.
I think that's so cool just because
Yeah.
it's such an organic way to meet him and see him and learn about, and the fact that it was like 10, 12 years ago is even cooler.
Yeah,
You know, he's been doing this day in, day out, you know, practicing what he preaches, but it's cool because you see him running with Dr. Joe. You see him running with Bruce Lipton, you know, these like good friends of his.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you know, like,
they're all
what type
connected.
type of conversations are being had, what's being talked about, what's being taught, and this is the information that truly needs to get out there, you know, or it is out there for people to see our possibilities.
Yeah, and he literally dedicates his life to this information. And the cool thing is, like, people like me, I could piggyback off that information.
Hell yeah.
And so he's doing all the footwork, and I'm doing the listening. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
And I appreciate that because, and that's kind of why we're featuring him today. We want the word to get out there, and we highly suggest people go on to. He's all over the YouTube.
Yep.
Again, if you have Gaia, he's probably one of the most visible person on Gaia.
He
And
is. He has a ton of content.
He's got Missing Links. I think there's 3 seasons right
Yep.
now. He's on the new Expo.
Los Angeles Conscious Life.
Your Conscious Life Expo. I think he has 2 segments in that.
Yep.
And so everything I find, his books, he's got numerous books. I grab and read because you can't get enough. But he keeps developing his new information. You know, he is formally, or he's educated within geology. So
Yeah, I was going to say, he's a geologist.
he is a geologist.
So that's important to
even
touch
in
on.
Technology. So he's a computer geologist as well. Yeah.
Yep. Well, he has a background. What was it in what did he do early on in his career? He worked for like different computer companies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He ran
You know?
them. Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. So he has a background, you know, in tech, which is awesome. So he meshes like this tech, this science,
Yeah.
all in one.
And he's even asked to go on archaeological digs, even though he's not formally an archaeologist, but he's a geologist, which go hand in hand.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And his style in general is just cool. He always wears black and stuff. He kind of has like a Johnny Cash type of vibe. Like a very like old school, like I don't know how to explain it, just like a rock and roll classic dude. And I like that. And he's got like the old like kind of slick back hair. You know? Yeah, he's just like a badass dude.
Well, why he plays guitar, that's why I bet.
Yeah,
Both me and Mike play guitar. So.
Yeah, exactly. But he's just like a rock and roll dude.
We're only featuring people who play guitar on this, by the way, from here on in.
Mahesh Yogi.
I think he plays guitar. We'll make him play guitar.
That's awesome. But yeah, I'm excited to jump into him because Braden was a big start for me personally. You know, and I know obviously he had an impact on you. So to see what he's doing and see the decade plus or 2 decade plus span that he's been doing this with, you know, a lot of the greats out there, it's just a testament to, you know, the truth that he's sharing.
Yeah, he merges the science and the mysticism or the mystical together brilliantly, and that's
so let's dive into a clip.
all right. Let's do it.
Let's do the first
Here
one.
we go.
What's this one?
This one is
So this is a clip called How You Can Create an Amazing Reality for Yourself. It's just a brief clip that we pulled of his.
check it out.
So one of the first scientific links to what I'm talking about here, the link between the language that we use and our biology, the way that our neurons fire, was made early in the 20th century by a linguist. His name was Benjamin Lee Whorf. And the ideas that Benjamin Whorf shared in the world of linguistics, in the world of science, they were radical for his time. What he said is this. Number one, he said that the way that we speak actually influences the way that we think. But perhaps even more importantly, number two, he said the way that we speak influences what we think. That our thoughts, what we are capable of thinking, are actually linked to the way our neurons are being wired. One of the reasons that Whorf came to this conclusion was because of the work that he was doing with an indigenous people in North America, northern Arizona, the Hopi. And what he found was that the language of the Hopi, when that language was translated into English, what he found is that the Hopi have a very, very different way of thinking about us, about nature, about our relationship to the world, and specifically about time. So here we are back at time. Time is the program that allows us to live our lives as we do within the operating system of the divine matrix. What Whorf found was that in the Hopi language, they see everything as alive, everything is connected, everything is present and now. From the Hopi perspective, there are only two realms of possibility. One is the realm of things that are manifesting in the present, and one is the realm of things that are already manifest. The Hopi do not think about time the way that we think about time. From their perspective, the manifest is everything that has already happened. It's everything that we can sense, everything that we can experience. It's what's already occurred in the world. From this perspective, the manifesting is what is unfolding in this moment and is actually called in the language the spirit of the breath. It includes whatever is unfolding in the moment now as well as what's possible in the future. Now, these may seem like insignificant changes that I'm talking about between the way that the Hopi think and the way we think, but they have very powerful implications. Let me talk to you about the concept of time in the Hopi language. In Hopi, there is no time as we know it. There's only now. And what Worf found when he was exploring the language is that there were no nouns in the Hopi language to specifically refer to the past or the future. Everything is present. Everything is happening right now. So for example, the idea of a wave, when we look at the wave in an ocean, we say, look at that wave. For the Hopi, it's impossible to see one wave in a moment in time and call it a wave. Because it is happening now, the word is waving. When they are looking at the wave, we say, look at the wave, but we know there are other waves out there. The Hopi say that the ocean is waving. They actually have a word, they say wa la lata, meaning the plural waving is occurring, the plural waving. So in a very real sense, their language is more accurate than ours, describing what the waves are doing, although it feels awkward to us because of the way we're wired to think. So the Hopi are using the same words to describe what is or what has already happened. They're describing a quantum possibility that has already become manifest while leaving the future open for other manifestations and other possibilities.
I love how he explained that, because I know I've listened to other stuff with him. He talked about how the English language, especially in the Hopi and other types of languages, some of these ancient civilizations, or even indigenous, I should say, not ancient, but they came, ancients didn't have this too. They didn't have indications in their language of separation. We do.
Yep.
We have win or lose, competition, collaboration. We have all this stuff here. And this is what we were raised in, to use these words of separation, where in the Hopis, they didn't have that separation. We were taught this. So as Western,
it's two totally different ways of looking at life and your reality.
And I think that's what we're overcoming now, because we were taught that there is separation, but people like the Hopi Indians didn't. Hopi Native Americans did not, and that's why I imagine for them watching, people come into this land, were probably like, "What the hell is going on?"
Yep.
Yeah, they couldn't understand it. So, and we're finally, as humans, collectively coming out of this. We still see it; it's still in the news, but separation is what allows these big organizations to create more money for what one day they're going to wake up and realize, what are we doing here? But I like how he presents that.
Oh, absolutely. And what he's talking about here is so powerful, because he's saying, guys, the way we communicate through words, like with the scientists that he was referencing in the beginning, is how we experience this reality. And so the Hopi, who see things as everything that is, and this is a cool clip, and we like to pick this, it talks about the Arizona, Hopi, etc. And Frank and I both are living in Arizona right now. So these little synchronistic moments are fun and exciting. So that's why we wanted to share this with you. But you see a clip like that, and it helps you to see that, wow, how we have been taught to think really affects how we think. And so when you can see that from above, or see that from like the analytical mind, you can like loosen up on this separateness that Frank was just referring to. It doesn't need to be separate. And this also ties into, Frank and I will often talk about the double slit experiment, like quantum physics, where we have proven that when we observe a wave, we break it down into particle. And the reason this is such a big deal is as soon as we observe and we look for something or we label something is when we make it something. Yeah. So something is not separate until we look at it as wave, like he's talking about, rather than waving.
And how we look at it will represent
how we experience
how the photon becomes into a...
How it actually materializes.
Yeah, so as we're starting, and the world is doing this, even in the West here, because the West coined the phrase quantum physics. So we're coming to this conclusion. It was like we took a long way around where these other indigenous people were already there. Again, I love to tell the story is like, Native Americans inhabited America, what we consider America, North America, over 15,000 years ago. And so that's a long time. And so as Westerners, we came through these cycles of different governments, we don't have to go back that far, but go through the Roman Empire and how long that lasted. And that fell apart. Why? Because the way it was about the hierarchy and this is better than that. And here we are then trying to break away from that. And, people started coming over here and exploring in the mid-1400s. But when we started America, the Pilgrims from England came over in the 1600s. And then, obviously, we know in 1776 is when we became a country. We broke away from England. Yep. But we only did the same thing. But there was a meshing because the Founding Fathers took the idea of what we call a Constitution off the Native Americans. And when you look at the Constitution, it has everything in it, but people are like, oh, we're breaking away from Constitution. I'm like, to be technical, we've never lived it, because since the beginning we had the Constitution, all men, and this includes women, should be treated equal. Well, we haven't seen that.
Since day one.
We're like patting ourselves on the back because women are getting the same pay now.
Yeah. Like hundreds of years later.
And let alone what we did. And then, hey, what did we do to Native Americans? Yeah. By the end of the Civil War.
But let's talk about why we don't. And it's simply because in our books, in school, we condition kids to believe that it is an equal type of thing. There is a lot of conditioning there.
It started with the fundamental idea of competition. I must be better than you. And if you live by that, you have to conquer. But if you started with the ideal of collaboration, there would be no conquering. So the collaboration is a new concept coming into our construct. And when you realize you collaborate, because even I was talking to someone the other day, and are you telling me competition isn't good? And I'm like, it's fragmented. They're like, I see good in it. I'm like, what do you see good in it? Well, it makes me a better person. How does it make you a better person? Because you're comparing your betterness over somebody else's worseness. Like, does that make you feel better? I look at this. Sports will always continue. They've always been here. They always will. But the greatest athletes do not compete. They perform.
Competing is the mind.
Yeah.
It is all mind.
They perform. So the greatest athletes perform. The greatest musicians perform. They don't compete. I remember when I was in high school, they had the battle of the bands. I thought it was the funniest thing. This is music. Why are we what's the best band? I'm like, this is ridiculous. Battle of bands. We get out there.
I remember that.
Too. It was just weird. And then you had to vote on which is the best band. I'm like, this is nutty.
Yeah.
These are musicians. It should be a festival, not a battling. But because of society, but we're softening up from that. And actually individuals like Gregg Braden shows the science to why it doesn't work. Not just to let's hold hands and do this. Although when you get to that point, holding hands will mean something completely different. You're like, wow, when actually you let go of this understanding of separateness, all of a sudden you see how collaboration actually benefits you. And because if it benefits me, it benefits all around me. And it's like, wow, this is not just about feeling good. This is about knowing, and then the feeling permeates from your body. The electromagnetic field starts to expand in my body, and I become more of a catalyst for other people, and other people for me as well.
See, I love this because you're right. Braden talks about this a lot. Back, who is the evolution dude?
Darwin?
Yeah, Darwin.
Thanks.
Sorry, blanked it for a second.
Yeah.
But he talks about this, you know, and you know how no, we did not evolve from apes, and then like we try, you know, as much as it's been like pushed down our throats.
Yeah, and I've heard this even before I heard it from him, but he just verified it. But a lot of people don't know when you read Darwin, if you study, I studied a little bit. I didn't get deep into it, but he had like footnotes.
Okay.
And if one or two of these things, based on his theory on evolution, he wasn't the only person in it, but he was one who held it. And one of the reasons he did it was to kind of break away, because he felt that the church was containing the idea of science, wasn't letting it break beyond this point. So he wanted to break beyond it. So he used some of his ideas, where evolution was one of them. But he said, if one or two of these things should happen, my theory on evolution will collapse. Well, no one talks about that. So he has had more than one or two things actually occurred for his theory to collapse. So if Darwin himself was around, he was like, I cannot believe you're still teaching this in school.
Seriously.
Again. So
this survival of the fittest, this competition.
Yeah, and Gregg Braden talks about this. Why people kept it is because there is corporations and organizations that keep you and I competing, and they make money. So it's almost like we're two cocks, and they put in a fight for their entertainment.
That's exactly
but
what
you
we
don't
are.
see them getting in the ring.
And just because we've been conditioned to raise this way our entire lives, we perform.
Yeah, so
it's just part of our habit, part of what we think is normal or reality. You're supposed to have competition. If we don't have competition, what's going to make him work harder?
Yeah. Yeah, so what would the emperors of Rome do if there wasn't gladiator fights in the arena on, I don't know what day of the week they did it. Like, hope it wasn't on Sunday.
Friday.
It was a Friday.
Friday night fights.
Yeah, Friday night fights. And it was for their entertainment of boredom. And it's not like the gladiators wanted to kill each other. Actually, they didn't. But that was a tremendous field of competition, which brings on worry, you know. And it was survival of the strongest. And then later on it became survival of the fittest. And it's just, we still buy into this, and we're still competing.
Very
but
much
we're starting
so.
to break away. And a gentleman like Gregg Braden is teaching us the science behind why this doesn't work. It never will work. It will always collapse. Roman Empire collapse.
As soon as we see this concept on its face, or the falsities or whatever you want to say about it, life loosens up a little bit too.
Oh. Like,
it's not as rigid. Because like we live in this weird world where we are taught to compete, you know. We have that fear of missing out, like constant judgment, you know. We call it keeping up with the Joneses, you know. We have all these like terms for this shit in our culture.
Yeah.
And so like to pretend that we don't live our lives based off of this outdated theory, it's mockery. Like, of course we do. And this is what we need to break away from.
Yeah, because in that field, everyone else outside of you is a threat. And that's just a weird way of living. And the thing is, if
you're living in fear.
Yeah, so if you have that thought, you're permeating it. You create that wave into that photon, which solidifies into the world. You're going to have evidence. So I'm not saying it doesn't exist. But when you actually turn to the other side, the light side, if you will, and realize we're all here, and all of a sudden, love thy enemy is what it meant in one way of looking at it. When you love thy enemy, you realize your enemy, the reason your enemy is they have something they can offer. They're on the opposite side of this pendulum, or opposite side of polarity. But the opposite polarity actually completes my polarity. And you see, wow, so when you love thy enemy, you see how they can work for you, all right? And it's amazing. A lot of times we choose people that bounce against us as our enemy. And I'm like, why? I'm like, they can fulfill the thing you need. Like in business, you know, you have one person that's great in operations, and the other one's great in accounting.
Yep.
All right. They are somewhat on the opposite poles of the business, but without one another, you have no business. You can't just run operations without accounting. You can't, what's accounting without operations?
That's it.
And you realize then you marry each other and you stay out of each other's way. Allow the accountant to do the accounting and allow the operations to deal with the operations. And then you'll see how, because it's designed.
Natural flow.
It's natural flow. The universe actually designed the mechanism. We're just placing our value into the mechanism, how we look at it. So what business I run, and people say business is business is business. It doesn't matter what business. It's the same thing. Is a blueprint out there. And if I apply my, the way I look at it onto it, the way I view life, and if it's a competition, it will break apart. But if it's collaboration, it will expand. But I don't need to know how. I just need to just apply my collaboration here, and then somebody else can collaborate here, just like musicians. I got 4 people in a band. They all offer up their instrument, and what happens when they do? One song is played by 4 different individuals, but it's an individual at the same time. It's this and that. And
this might be a tangent, but I just when
let's
you
do a tangent. That's what we do here with tangents.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But when you said the business is business, so like I have a team of real estate agents, and they'll come and ask questions like, Mike, I'm trying to figure out, this business thing. I got to get this model, ready. What should I be doing with this, etc. And it's always a bunch of little different details about a specific like business avenue. That's something that I need a website, I need a business card, I need this, I need that. What I've realized about this business is all of that is really just details. And until we kind of center ourselves on a whole level, like mental, mind, body, everything, then business doesn't really start to flow. And I notice this in my personal life too. When you start to work with this reality, it's all showing you information that you need to learn about yourself. So through your business endeavors, you're going to learn about yourself. Certain examples will come up that teach you, hey, this is a hang-up for you. This is something you need to clear out. This is something, on a deep personal level that may have to do with your family, your parents, your friends, whatever, but like a sense of lack within yourself. So if you're finding yourself ever hung up in like a business type of setting, it's time to go within and see, okay, where is this hang-up really coming from, and what do I need to clear out? Because at the end of the day, business is business. It is what it is. It's a part of a flow. It's not something separate from you. Like you cannot be half in, half out personally, and then just be killing it business-wise. No. It's very much like this balance. And so when somebody comes to me, is asking me, I'm having trouble doing this, etc., I start asking them about their personal life. And I'm like, hey, how are things at home? How are you sleeping? What's your relationship?
And
like
your Mike, I just need business cards.
That's it. And they're like, what does this have to do with me creating a website? And I'm like, everything.
Mike's the real estate Buddha.
but truly, business is not separate from the self. It's just a fragment of it. And so to think that you're going to solve your business life or fix your business plan by just that, and doing some third dimensional, like, all right, I've got to call 100 people 10 days out of the month and create this weird list of to-dos, because this is what we've been taught outside of us, that 10 steps to getting rich, 5 steps to this. It's all bullshit. Well, there's no set recipe. There is no this equals that. Like, it doesn't work that way. And the sooner that we dive into ourselves is when the other facets of our life will start to kind of flow.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, we all start businesses. Well, we shouldn't say all, but you're going to start people changing it now. But in the beginning, I started a business to make money to support myself. Yeah. And in that, I found myself. And I realized that's not why I started the business. Me and Mike started this podcast not to project what we know. We're here to project what we don't know. Yeah. Really. We're learning as we're speaking. Absolutely. We just both watched that clip before even watching it. Yeah. We watched just the audience. I didn't see that specific clip that we pulled up.
Frank and I each picking up a clip for each week.
And so we're here learning as we go, and it's the collaboration and the understanding of support what allows me to get, sit down and get in front of the mic and not know what I'm going to say, but I know it's going to come across. Sometimes it doesn't come across that clear because
Dude, I know what you
I'm
mean.
from New York.
You let it flow through.
Yeah.
Like,
My
think about what you're
my
saying.
My language barrier has, certain implications. But, yeah. But yeah, we have fun doing that. And even in the business I have and the business Mike has, I am now learning to be the lowest guy on the ladder, holding the ladder, rather than trying to get up at the top. I'm holding the ladder for everyone. And the more I hold the ladder for everyone, I've noticed everyone wants to hold the ladder. And all of a sudden, the ladder is stable. So
You've created a foundation.
Yeah, I'm creating a field because I realize I'm not in charge. There's a field in charge.
Yeah.
Now, because people are looking up to me, if I create a narrative field of competition, my business is going to fragment and fall apart. I know the physics behind that. So what I do is I go in every day, and even not even go in because we live in a quantum universe. When I'm at home, I steer away from any negativity thinking about anyone, and I see everyone excelling. So when I actually enter into the field, I'm actually permeating this amazing field, and then people coming in. And I'm not the only one. My employees help with me as well. So we're all part of this field. And we're in this field. There is no one individual in charge. It's the field in charge. And Gregg Braden explains that well because
He does.
I think that was the first time I heard this. I've heard this quote so many times, but I think the first time I heard the quote by Einstein was through Gregg Braden.
Which one?
The field is the sole governing agency of the particle. Yeah. And I've heard somebody, Bruce Lipton talked about it. Joe Dispenza, I think, mentioned it. I've read it before, but and I felt like, wow, that's true. I have the capacity to check myself every day in my meditations and create the field in which I want to be part of, and then carry with me throughout the day. That's what we do.
A big hang-up is at people at home or, society, we don't think we're the field. We think we're the particle. And so it keeps us separate. So until we embrace these types of concepts, like what Frank is talking about, that, wow, my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, these are the field. We take a snapshot in our head when we don't feel well, when we're tired, when we're sick, whatever, and we say, I am this. And we make ourselves that. And that's what quantum physics has shown us, through these experiences. That we're making things concrete and then experiencing them simply by saying they are. Yeah. I am this. I am that. And so when you can loosen up on that, that's you loosening up. You're playing as the field now.
Yeah. Yeah, more correct way to actually say it is I am experiencing sickness. I'm experiencing being tired, but I am not that.
No.
You're the field. We're coming through the field to do it. But once you solidify it, there's no way out.
That's it. You're forced to experience reality as that.
Yeah, you're stuck in it. How can I get out of it? Because if you create a separation by I am experiencing, this is one way, I'm experiencing illness. Yep. Okay, what do I have to do to get out of experiencing illness?
And you'll see this with your friends and family, et cetera, at home, coworkers who talk about,
myself.
I'm broke, I have no money, I have such a shitty relationship with my wife, with my husband, and people just solidify this narrative that they're pumping in their head all day long, and then they're like, why doesn't this change?
We all inherit...
And it's you're carrying this weird narrative. You can
funny?
drop it.
Yeah, what's funny? We all inherently knew that I am, whatever follows, wasn't who we really are, because I remember as a kid, my dad would say this, I'm hungry. He goes, hey, hungry, how you doing?
Hell yeah. It's a good way to take out.
Yeah, so anything I said, I am tired. Hey, tired. Hey, sleepy, how's it going?
Yep.
So I couldn't use that term around my dad. Even if I said, "Hey, I'm happy,"
Yeah.
I would not say I'm happy to my dad. Hey, Dad, I'm happy. It's
Frank's dad's from New York and is a boxer. Yeah. It's just not something you go up and tell him, hey, Dad, I'm happy.
I don't think I've ever told someone I'm happy.
You've told me you're happy, man.
No, I would always say I am, and usually a negative connotation.
That's how we've been conditioned, and most people use that phrase.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, that tangent, all of that, it brings us back to this, the word of the Hopi, which is, hey, as soon as you speak of something in a certain way, it becomes that way.
Yeah, so start to try to take some pronouns and some adjectives out of your dialect and stop using them. Try that. Try to, like, it's not about thinking positively, but try to watch the words you speak of every day, because some of these words already have a frequency definition. In other words, a definition to it which emits a frequency onto your body. So if you be conscious enough to not use an adjective or a pronoun or something that creates a negative field, you have to be conscious, and consciousness is where things develop into the expansion. Yep. Because we're unconscious of it, but we know we don't feel good. We don't know why. Then we think there's luck and bad luck. It's just, well, me. But when you become conscious, you realize, wow, I'm the one who stepped on the tack to get my foot to hurt. I can prevent that just by consciously understanding there's a tack on the floor, stop stepping on it. Yep. But before, I didn't look down, and I kept stepping on it, and I just knew that, like, okay, if I walk this direction, I might get stuck, but I might not. Let's take a chance. It's not that way.
Well, and it was cool how Gregg Braden also touched on that gentleman who talked about the way we speak. So one thing that separates, not even just that, but like one thing that separates us, a human being, from apes and things like that. And Gregg Braden also talks about this is the use of our voice. He always talks about like a monkey can't sing. Like, why can't a monkey sing if we come from,
I saw a YouTube
apes?
video with a monkey singing.
Well, have you really?
No.
Oh, I was going to say.
He was talking.
I was going to say, there's like a whole episode how they don't sing. Yeah. And I was like, really?
No,
but so with that, we have so when we use this voice, and we haven't been taught this. This
sound
is a very
frequency is what we're doing.
But yeah, we're like bringing to life what we speak of and what we talk about. And so even if you're just like sharing something with like your family, your friends, your coworkers, you are bringing it to life.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want to experience something, or you do want to experience something, these are how you use the voice to help bring it to life and bring it to experience. And this is powerful, because when you start to learn, holy shit, what this is not so much of a body, but actually an instrument for me to create. Yeah. You start to only speak of things you want to experience. You start to only bring life to things that are important for your growth.
Yeah. Yeah, so when you actually sit here in the present moment, you look what's around you. In that present moment, you could change direction. So when you look at the outside world, this is how it is. If I don't prefer it, I could then go in and amplify and upgrade the way I produce something. And what I mean is, you can amplify your emotion at any time, like a great actor does on cue. But we go like this. No, how can I amplify my emotion with that thing out there standing there? I'm like, that's just a prop, people. When you understand that you can amplify emotion brings you to a higher level, creates a bigger torus, which is the electromagnetic field around us. And when that happens, all of a sudden you start to feel better. And you feel better, then you could ride that wave or those wavings.
Yeah, or the wavings.
Wavings.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
If Craig heard that, he's like, oh, these morons. Wavings.
No,
but
that's the truth.
It is. So realize everything outside of it is just a prop. In the moment, if you choose to keep replicating your emotion off it, this is where the diminish of going down is. But at any moment, I could look at that and change the way I look at it, and then upregulate my emotion to it, and then the prop starts to change. It's amazing. Quantum physics shows us. But try it, because the outside world isn't going to change right away. But how I feel about it is key.
So I want to speak about this really frankly, but the way that...
Frankly? Right here.
Frankly, Daly. So, but you have... This all goes back to you. So you have the ability to look at these concepts and say, okay, this doesn't work or this does work. And whatever you state, you will experience. Yeah. Okay? So those at home who are saying, I don't know if I believe this, or I don't know if I get, can agree with this, that's conditioning. Okay? And the longer and the more opinion you put on any type of thought is what you will experience. And so Frank and I aren't saying, okay, you can live in both different, totally different worlds, like this exists and it's both at the same time.
Yeah.
You can tell yourself, hey, none of these concepts work, and experience that. and you will, completely shut yourself out from this whole multidimensional experience simply by saying this does not exist. I do not buy into this. And you experience that. And this is what the Bible references as hell.
Yeah.
Knowing that, nope, I'm here. This sucks. I'm in pain. I'll tell you what, I know tomorrow's going to be just as shitty as yesterday, and it will be. I promise you it will be. So it's up to you individually to take control of your experience.
Yeah, and also too, me and Mike want to let you know the misconception that you always have to be in this exhilarating place, because once I discover something, there's like this excitement and exhilaration. But once I discover an idea or a thought, that now I'm in a different field of excitement, exhilaration, and I might be in a very subdued, relaxed place. So it's kind of like a car getting on the freeway. In order to get on the freeway, I have to rev my RPMs up to about 4,000 to get up to speed. But once I get up to speed, they drop back down to 2,000. But I'm still up to speed. So the exhilaration and fun of it, you can't stay there all the time. So people they always want this exhilaration, this high and stuff like that. I'm like, no, the engine will burn out. That's the physics of the world. We still live in the physics.
Great analogy.
So when I drop down my RPMs, I'm still moving at 100 miles an hour. The car didn't slow down. It's just a different feeling. Now I can lay my cup of coffee on the dashboard. Yep. Because that's what I do. I don't
Driving a cup of coffee on the dash.
Right on the dashboard.
No, that was a great analogy, though. That is what it's like.
Yeah, so know that when you get excited about something.
That's a sign to move into it.
Yeah, you're moving into it, and the exhilaration. And all of a sudden, when you're there, boom, you drop down to the natural speed. You don't feel the exhilaration. It's just more, I'm now in the current of the wave I'm in
the state.
So people are like, oh, there's something wrong here. I'm like, there's nothing wrong. You're moving at 100 miles an hour. You just don't notice it because the RPMs, what we call the G-force, isn't pushing against you. You're actually one with it. So that's the misconception. People think, oh, I like this feeling. I'm like, how can I? And all of a sudden they're like, if I can't maintain that feeling, I don't want it at all. I'm like, no.
Then it's a constant chase.
Yeah,
it's the seek. I must seek it.
Yeah.
What you're looking for
is blow your transmission.
It's always been here. Seriously,
yeah.
It has always been here. And so, I forgot who said this, but I read this quote: abundance and greatness and everything is around us at all times. We limit everything
we don't see it
with our own thoughts, mind, perceptions, preconceived notions, etc. Things like from bad experience, memories, blah, blah, blah. So all around us is greatness at all times, and we're the ones making it tighter, smaller little box that we live in.
Yeah, the way to visualize that, if you were in a warehouse and you only had a flashlight, and the flashlight is your only awareness. But as you expand your awareness, you turn on one light. All of a sudden, you look, this warehouse is full of stuff. But when you only had your flashlight, you can only see an item at a time. It looked like you're in an empty warehouse. You're not in an empty warehouse. But know this. You want to shed the light periodically throughout time. Because as I think Einstein said, the reason there's time is so everything doesn't happen at once. Well, we don't want to experience everything at once. So, again, the old sage story of how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah,
one bite at a time. So there's nothing wrong with that. You just holding the light. Yeah, I'm aware that this warehouse is completely full, but I only need what's on shelf number 2 for the moment. So I don't need to light up the whole warehouse. That could be overwhelming in the world we're in. But I know the warehouse is full. But I know what I want to experience in this moment, in this day, and it presents itself to me.
And just like us guiding that flashlight, that's our attention and focus. Where are we going to put our focus?
Yeah, so that's it.
That was an awesome analogy.
Oh, thank you, man.
But it's true. That was perfect.
Yeah.
Because if you can picture that, like a warehouse, that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. But you
aiming our focus.
Yeah.
Oh, don't like that. Gonna shift over here.
That's it.
Yeah. It doesn't mean, oh, I don't like this. I got to stay keeping the flashlight on this bad experience.
Yeah, just because I'm not experienced, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But just because it exists doesn't mean I have to experience it either.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I know Alaska exists, but I'm in sunny Arizona.
But it's cold.
It's chilly out here, though.
Yeah, we had a cold winter.
Isn't that funny? And someone said, when does spring come or when does summer come in Arizona? I'm like 2:00.
Yeah, I was gonna say daily.
It's winter in the morning. This time of year, and by 2:00 it's summer.
Nice and hot.
Yeah.
What's our next clip?
Let's go into this next clip. It's Gregg Braden.
The reason is because the same discoveries that have sparked the questions have also led to the conclusion that the facts we've trusted for over 300 years to explain the universe and our role in it are flawed. They're based upon two assumptions that have been proven to be absolutely false. The first of those assumptions is that the space between things is empty. New discoveries now tell us that this simply is not true. The second false assumption is that our inner experiences of feeling and belief have no effect upon the world beyond our bodies, and this has been proven absolutely false as well. Paradigm-shattering experiments published in leading-edge, peer-reviewed journals prove that we are bathed in a field of intelligent energy that fills what used to be thought of as that empty space. Beyond any reasonable doubt, additional discoveries show that this field responds to us. It rearranges itself in the presence of our heart-based feelings and beliefs, and this is the revolution that changes everything. Okay, you're saying, we've heard all of this before. It's naive and maybe even arrogant to suggest that the universe is in any way affected by our personal beliefs. It just cannot be that simple. As a scientist trained in the conventional ways that science has viewed our world in the past, 22 years ago, I would have agreed with you. At first blush, there appears to be nothing in our traditional way of seeing the world that allows for our inner beliefs to do much of anything at all, let alone change the universe itself. That is, however, until we begin to examine what the new discoveries are showing us about our world. Although the results of reality-bending research have been published in leading-edge technical journals, they're often shared in the language of scientification that masks the power of their meaning to a non-scientific person. And that's where our revolution comes in. Suddenly, we don't need the language of science to tell us that we're a powerful part of our world. Our everyday lives show us. I suspect that future generations will see our time in history as the turning point, when the conditions of the world forced us to discover how the universe really works and accept our interactive role in it. Rather than following the first 3 centuries of scientific imagery that portrayed us as powerless victims in life, the new science suggests just the opposite. The universe, our world, and our bodies are made of a shared field of energy that was scientifically recognized in the 20th century and is now identified by names that include the field, the quantum hologram, the mind of God, nature's mind, the matrix, and the divine matrix. Fact number 2. In the field of the divine matrix, things that have been connected physically and then separated act as if they are still connected through a phenomenon known as quantum entanglement. Fact number 3. Human DNA directly influences what happens in the divine matrix in a way that appears to defy the laws of time and space. Fact number 4. Human feeling, emotions, and belief directly changes the DNA that influences what happens in that matrix. And fact number 5, when we change our beliefs about our bodies and our world, the divine matrix translates that change into the reality of our lives. Well, with these and similar discoveries in mind, now we must ask ourselves the question that is perhaps the most revealing of all. Are we born with a natural ability to create and modify our bodies and our world? And if so, then we must be willing to ask the next question: what responsibility do we have to use our birth-given power in the presence of what experts tell us are the greatest threats to the future of our lives, our world, and even our species in history?
All right, so
Beautifully said.
I love this one.
That was great.
Yeah, I love this, because this is what we're talking about. So me personally, so I know this also was the same for Frank, how I was raised and grew up and taught and conditioned was the feelings you have inside of you do not affect the world outside of you.
Yeah.
We were taught that these are 2 separate worlds, and in fact, we're taught that the world inside of you doesn't really exist, and you don't need to focus on it.
Yeah, unless you're in a car full of people heading down to Florida for spring break, and your dad starts whacking you upside the head because you're bitching.
For real, though.
Like,
So
stop crying.
we have been taught since birth that, okay, this inner world that we have right now and these thoughts, these emotions, they don't affect anything that's going on out here. That is 100% false.
Yeah, we know
And
that. Yeah.
finally, science is now coming out, and these 5 facts that Gregg Braden so beautifully laid out help us to now see this from a scientific perspective.
Yeah.
So every thought you have, every emotion you have, every feeling, you are sending out a vibration to the field around you and affecting the reality, the physical matter that you're experiencing, you are affecting. And this has been proven, scientifically proven. This is the most powerful thing Frank and I can talk about.
Yeah, and also know this. You're not just sending out the field of energy. You're actually surrounding yourself with the field of energy. We talked about this on a couple of podcasts ago, where the field around you is emitting the information onto you. So if you have a negative field, your body's going to feel the negative, and that's what we call disease. So if not for anybody else, do it for yourself. And when you do it for yourself, you do it for others.
Well, it was kind of cool that you said that. So if you're not aware that you're in a participatory universe, then the outside world does affect you.
Oh, yeah.
So like...
well, it's your thoughts about the outside world that create the pattern of the field. And the pattern in the field, the electromagnetic pattern around your body, then tells your cells what to do.
Yeah.
So if you're negative, it's going to say, hey, give this guy cancer, give this pain,
Suffering.
give this person. But when I change the way I look at it and it changed the way I feel, I open my heart up. All of a sudden that emits a stronger field. We have like 40,000 to 50,000 neurons. And neurons aren't memory devices. They're actually transmitters. But it actually opened up. It transmits a field around me. And that field becomes supreme, almost like a beautiful kaleidoscope. And you see it. Now that field then sends information to my body. And even if I had cancer or disease, that starts to transform and change. If it's not for the outside world, others, do it for yourself. And when you do it for yourself, you do it for others. We are part and parcel together. We are this and that.
Yep.
All together.
This reality that you're experiencing, you are participating in it.
Yeah.
Every single moment of every single day. And the science now backs this up.
Yeah.
And this is something that needs to be taught to every child from birth, because this is so important that how we feel and how we look at a situation and how we observe something, we are actually affecting the physical outcome that we can touch, kick, spit on,
That's
whatever.
it. And the best way to teach it is not by talking about it, it's by doing.
Experience.
It's experience. So if I actually become the proprietor of my world, if I have a child and I'm acting a certain way, they're going to mimic me.
Yep.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Exactly.
Do as I say, not as I do. It never worked. Your kids never bought into it. My dad told me to do something he didn't do, I wouldn't do it. Yep. But when he told me to do something that I already seen him do, I did it because I saw the result of it.
Yep.
And
people see this
whether it's
for a number of things.
whether it was positive or negative.
Totally.
We
soak up whatever.
Yeah, you do it. But then what happens is, the negative stuff, like that wasn't working, but you don't see it was due to the way you looked at it, the way you felt. You just thought you got these cards were dealt to you, and that's what you have. You got the bad end of the stick, so to speak. So you become a victim mentality.
Yep.
And it's like, no.
I've been doing it right. It's just different for me.
Yes, yeah.
It's different for me because I was
2
raised
inches
this way.
taller or whatever, and it's like, no. It has nothing to do with that. We all have an imprint. Just like everyone in the world has a fingerprint. We all have a different field. My field is different than Mike's. But it doesn't mean mine's negative and his is positive. Just like the fingerprints on my hand are different than Mike's, are different than anyone. Over time, you can have trillions of individuals come onto this planet, and guess what? There's going to be trillions of fingerprints. You have 8 billion people on the planet. There's 8 billion different fingerprints right now, and their ancestors had a different fingerprint. There's a signature frequency that's just yours. And we diminish it by not believing we're powerful.
That's it.
Yeah. And Gregg Braden explains that beautifully through his science. So, me and Mike always suggest to go deeper into this. Don't take our word for it. Don't look at it the way we want to look at it. Go in and experience it. intellectual understanding is great. It gets you there. But if you don't enact it, you don't experience it, you'll never really know. Yeah.
It's like reading a book, and never getting a chance to actually go,
Yeah.
reading a book on how to ride a bike and never riding a bike.
Yeah, a book on how to travel and just do it. Yeah, you don't travel. Yeah. Yeah, so by all means, travel.
It is the experience. That's when you begin to see, holy crap, because you'll start to change little things. You won't stop. You'll stop saying certain things to yourself, and you'll start to experience things in a much greater way or a much more preferential way.
Yeah, preferential, efficient.
And you're like, wait, what's going on? Why is this different? The only thing I've changed is how I've been looking at this. And then you snowball into everything Frank and I, are sharing.
Yeah, and if you fall back into an old habit, all of a sudden the old habit's no longer it's no longer comfortable.
Yep.
So you don't stay there that long.
So
if you fall into an old habit and you get upset, don't get upset yourself. You just no longer want to be there anymore. It's just no big deal. It's conscious. You can only fall into a habit and know that you did if you're conscious. Just the awareness is enlightenment.
When you see that you're now in this participatory universe, you no longer, when something feels bad, you no longer are like, oh, I should probably keep doing this. No, you let go of it completely. You're like, whoa, thank you, instrument, because now you know what this body was here for, which is to say, hey, you don't really like this, or hey, you do, keep moving in that direction. Yeah. So I really trust my body now. If something feels off, I'm like, ooh, I take the foot off the gas and I'm like, what's up?
Yeah. All right. Well, here on Perspective Shift, we, all these people we're featuring, we highly recommend you check them out.
Absolutely.
Especially Gregg Braden. There's a lot of material out there. Me and Mike were like, I
all week.
Yeah, all week. Karen's like, seriously? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, But, and it's just to kind of immerse ourselves. I've been studying for a while, and the reason is he loves to give out if he learned something yesterday, he's telling you tomorrow.
Yep.
It's how he is. All right. So guys out there, check out Gregg Braden. He's all over on Gaia, YouTube. You can find him. He's got books everywhere as well. So
yep. One thing before we go, Gregg Braden always talks about too, visit the Heart and Math Institute.
Yeah.
The heartmathinstitute.org. Just kind of Google it or whatever. But the heart-brain coherence that he talks about is very similar to that of which like Dr. Joe, even Bruce Lipton, all talk about.
Yeah, everyone's talking about that.
Yeah, it's but they're science-based information on how this heart and the focus we put into the heart, and as it relates to the brain, the field, the energy that we put out. There's some good information there. I actually went to the website, and it's worth checking out.
Yeah. All right.
We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us this week on Perspective Shift. If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe at the link below. Feel free to leave Frank and I a comment or shoot us an email at perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com. We'd love to, feature a guest or a speaker that you liked at home. And we'll see you guys another week.
All right. Peace out.
Thanks, guys.